What's up, everyone? It's your boy Norm Radd89 here today. Going to be talking some backwoods horror as we are going to be discussing the Hatchet film from 2006, directed by Adam Green. This is going to be a really fun one to discuss. This is going to be tackling, like I said, starting some Radd movie reviews. I'm going to be doing for backwoods horror films, and then we're going to be eventually doing a top 10 and ranking video. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel, all that stuff, because we got some stuff planned. But today, like I said, we're going to hear the positives, the negatives, and the rating for Hatchet from 2006. Let's do it. Roll it. Since we have our little Victor Crawley, let's bust out Victor Crawley. Look, he's right here in the back. We always got some love for Victor Crawley. Like I said, today we're going to talk Hatchet from 2006, which is clearly a film that is made by a slasher fan for slasher fans. Hatchet is one of those films that just has all the tropes that you love a slasher film to have from the 80s. But like I said, this film was made in 2006, so it has a little bit of a modern flair to it. And I like the fact that, like I said, backwoods, it takes place in Louisiana at Honey Island Swamp. There's a lot of cool, like I said, backwoods feeling and vibes to this film when it comes to the swamp, the design of the area. And this is a film that was made for only about like $1.5 million. So it's a modest budget, but nothing extravagantly huge or anything. But you can see how they put that into the practical effects and also the design of the swamp and the area where Victor Crawley lived. So that's one key positive, is that I love that Adam Green, like I said, he is a pure slasher fan, and he made this film for slasher fans. And like I said, having the tropes, having that backwoods feel to it, the Victor Crawley character, who's a really cool character, played by Kane Hodder. Jason Voorhees, we love that actor. Kane Hodder is a legend in the game, and Victor Crawley is another iconic character that he's brought to life on screen that I really appreciate. And this is a film that, like I said, is more horror comedy, so it definitely has some gruesome kills, some brutal, intense, graphic ones, but there's also a lot of comedy in this film as well. But that kind of leans more into mixed and negatives, because for me, the comedy doesn't always land in this film, but there are some really good moments. Another positive for me is I love seeing Joel David Moore in here as our lead, and he's a lead protagonist character, and he's typically one of those joke side characters. Like if you watch Dodgeball or you watch Grandma's Boy, he is typically the geeky side character that usually gets made the most fun of and stuff like that, or picked on. And to see him in this film, and there's definitely reasons where you can see he used that kind of sappy, sympathetic nature of being a boy who's crushed, his heart's crushed because of the recent breakup that he had. So he does lean into that, but just having him as a protagonist, the lead actor, I think is really cool and really fun to have him in here. There's also a great cameo cast in here, like Robert Englund and Kane Hodder. And as you go down in the Hatchet films, they just increase the cameo list. They lean into that heavy. So that's one thing I love about the Hatchet franchise, is this is just a horror fan's dream, because there's cameos a bunch, and it's like I said, they don't always land maybe, but I love it because it's endearing to me. When I watch this film and I go back to it, it's just fun to see all these famous horror actors that have been in the game for decades come in to team up to do this film. Another thing I love about this film, it is a brisk, fast watch. This film's only an hour and 33 minutes, and that's all it needs to be, because like I said, this is homaging a lot of those 80s slasher films, and the best ones are an hour and a half to an hour and 40 minutes. There's really no more time that you need to execute a really good, iconic slasher film, so Hatchet knows that. But like I said, let's get into some mixed and negatives. Is that I think for me, when it comes to mixed and negatives, there is some comedy moments that don't land. There is moments where I'm just like, they're leaning too heavy into this. They have one character in there that's the best friend of Joel's character in the film, and he just is full on just a comic relief side character. There are moments I laugh at what he's talking about or what he says, but for most part, it does grate on you and become kind of annoying by the time we get to the third act. Another thing is our lead protagonist, the female character in here. I think she does good with what she's given, but she's kind of a side character. She slowly gets more character development and more reveals as you get into the film. She does get recasted for Danielle Harris as an actress. She gets recasted as Danielle Harris in Hatchet 2. So I think that's an improvement for me, because I love Danielle Harris, but the girl in here does fine. She's not awful or anything, but you could definitely tell she's not worthy of full-on protagonist screen presence, and that's why she's kind of in the background and doesn't really pop up or get major into the film until we get more into the second act and third act of the film. But I do love, like I said, the practical effects in here, the introduction of Victor Crawley. I wanted more of the legend in this film, and that's why this isn't my favorite in the franchise. Hatchet 2 would do everything that Hatchet does, but better. I am a sequel whore, so you know that about me on this channel. But yeah, when you go to Hatchet 2, I feel like it has the same formula as Hatchet, but it does more lore building. There's more graphic kills, and I think the comedy is elevated and it's better writing in that second film. So that's why I like that one a little bit more. But I think Hatchet, this first film, is still a great start to a franchise. And like I said, for me being a slasher fan, this is right up my alley, and I love this film. So thank you for sticking around with me all as we discussed Hatchet from 2006. These are just my thoughts and my opinions on the film, so please let me know down below in the comments section what are your feelings on this film. So in terms of a Radd rating, Hatchet is going to get a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, this is a really good start to a franchise, and like I said, a good jumping off point in a film that has some really funny comedy moments, some gruesome kills, but like I said, there are moments where I'm kind of like, oh, it just doesn't land for the comedy, and I do wish that, and like that they do in the second film, recast our female protagonist from this film. So there's pluses and stuff, but also negatives with this film, but I highly recommend watching this film. This is one of those films that you're always going to get a kick out of because, like I said, of how intense it is and how much they lean into that 80s slasher trope stuff, but they have the 2006 kind of modern dialogue and modern stuff going on in this film. But thanks for sticking around with me all for this video. Please like, share, subscribe. That greatly helps out the channel, and stay tuned to the channel by having that notification bell poked, because I'm going to be doing some other Radd movie reviews. You might be seeing some for, like I said, The Hills Have Eyes, Wrong Turn films. Like I said, we're kind of staying in the vein of that backwoods horror kind of isolation type films with a lot of mongoloids or disfigured kind of characters that are going after our protagonists. So you don't want to miss a thing, because then we're going to be eventually getting on to the ranking video as well. But like I said, most importantly, y'all know what's up. Have a safe and happy day. Peace out.